Redditors who grew up with shady criminal parents. What did your mom or dad teach you was okay to do that you later learned was illegal or seriously frowned upon? Serious. My blood father was a drug dealer and he often came home with some really nifty stuff. I later found out it was stuff he got from people who didn't have cash on them but still wanted to buy. I think the thing I feel most guilty about was a Game Boy Advance I was given that we'd either only have for a little while or have forever. When he said that, it was usually forever. It had a heap of games with it and I went through and started new games on all of them, erasing the existing save files. Well, he took it back after about a month. So I guess whoever it was paid up, and I feel really sorry for their kid. Mummy or daddy was an addict and used their Game Boy Advance as collateral, and when they got it back, all their saves were gone. I was only a kid at the time and didn't really know the context in which I was handed the thing. But I know it belonged to a kid since there were quite a few young child learning game cartridges alongside Mario and Pokemon. Dang. If we were at home and they yelled pigs, we were to hide behind the couch and be silent. If we were in the car and they yelled pigs, we had to crawl into the floorboard and not move a muscle. I was kidnapped in grade 3 by my dad's supplier. He held us for 2 days. We had no idea. My sister and I met him before, lots of times. When he showed up at school and said our parents were on vacation and to go with him, we did. They had soda and Oreos and a puppy and a Sega Genesis and it was the best weekend of my life. Found out 20 years later when my mom was complaining about never having had a vacation in her life. I reminded her of that vacation and she said, "You idiot, you were kidnapped." Oh, cool. Bro, at least the kidnapping drug dealers were nice to you. I mean, I knew it was illegal, but probably growing all the cannabis when I was a kid. Dad was gonna die of cancer, so he wanted to leave us some money. It was like diet Breaking Bad. I'm sorry, but that last sentence cracked me up. Not my parents, but a friend's dad gave us some solid advice that I always remembered. Remember boys, don't break the law when you're breaking the law. It applies in so many ways. For example, don't run a stop sign when you've got weed in the car. Or don't speed if your inspection is out of date. Or don't get the police called for a noise complaint if you've had a beer while underage. He was a shady guy, but oddly wise in many ways. Shady guys that actually make it to middle or old age have the best advice to give because it's based on experience. I'd much rather listen to a gangster than a priest. The priest bit is a whole other discussion. My mom and dad are trained artists and teachers and they would frequently counterfeit things like parking permits, coupons, doctor's notes, etc. It was wild. My teacher stepdad made me a counterfeit student so I could keep getting student bus fares after I graduated LMAO. My mom was a drug dealer. There are so many things I could list, but I'm on my phone, so just a few things off the top of my head. Smoking pot. When I was about 4, I chased my mom through the Woolworths drugstore screaming, "Mommy, mommy, you dropped your joint. Don't you want your joint?" She hurried fast to shushing me and I got a big talking to that afternoon. Snorting Coke. I was in the 2nd grade when I got sent to the principal's office for teaching my friends how to make lines with salt and use part of a milk straw to snort it. My mom was really Don't talk to cops or any straight people. I didn't know why at first, but I lived in terror of straight people. I got congratulations for making it through FBI questioning when I was probably 6 years old when they raided our land. SWAT teams are scary. Boobs are good for smuggling. Cleaning out stems and seeds is a fun summer job. Don't say anyone's name on the phone. Those are just a few things I immediately recall. Ooh, I forgot to add how every now and then people in our circle of friends would move far away for a while and change names and we weren't ever allowed to call them by their old names. My mom also made us believe that morphine was an excellent pain reliever for all ages. I mean, morphine does work as an excellent pain reliever. My dad was a tow truck driver and he would always bring me little presents as a kid that he got out of people's tower cars. As far as I knew, if someone knew their car was going to get towed, they took everything they wanted out of it and the rest was fair game. My dad was investigated by the FBI for racketeering, but they were unable to press charges on him. He was also sued by a major financial entity for racketeering as well. Anyways, when I was a teenager, my dad had a lawsuit brought against him by multiple employees for unpaid overtime, and he ordered me to go through the boxes upstairs in a warehouse that we had to find all of their time cards. The storage area was a disaster. Papers everywhere. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find them, so I told my dad that it was no use. The time cards weren't there. My dad then yelled at me, telling me that he needed those time cards and said that all of these people were trying to rip him off, so if I had to just make up time cards for them so that they were working 40 hours a week with no overtime, but don't bother telling him about what I did to get the time cards when I had them. I just had to have them for him one way or the other. I didn't think much about the last bit until much later, but long story short, I ended up making time cards that he used for the case. He won. Realized several years later that my dad had used me for forgery, and when I confronted him about it, he just laughed and said that I was a minor at the time and nobody puts a minor in jail for a white collar crime. I've run into some of those employees since then, and when they accosted me for being his daughter and how they would want to punch my dad, or worse, if it was him they ran into, I've always confessed this to them. Ironically enough, they have all said that they would punch him on my behalf too, because the fact that he used his own daughter peed them off even more. And about the racketeering thing, he loved laughing about that and calling himself a don. When I was going to take over the business several years later after the forgery bit, his oldest employees gave me loyalty oaths. I ran like heck. My dad absolutely was a racketeer. My boyfriend always talks about the stories of his dad having friends everywhere. Family would talk about how his now late father had friends no matter where he went in the city, and how great that was, and no matter where they stopped he would randomly know someone there. Then as an adult he realized that his dad just had drug dealers everywhere and that's who he was always seeing. Sounds more like his dad was the dealer. Users normally don't know dozens of dealers everywhere around. Dealers do. Shoplifting for the most part. I mean, like she never made us do it, but she didn't hide what she was doing either. She's the reason model homes have cameras now, lol. My dad stole a few things in a sneaky way so my brother and I would have won each. In one instance, for example, he bought a Game Boy game. He brought it back to the car, removed the cartridge, and took it back into the store saying the case was empty. He did the same thing with those Pikachu Tamagotchi things. I think his biggest steal was a PlayStation 2. He actually did purchase one. My mum went in and picked it up, but when leaving the store, the door person didn't tear the receipt. So, my dad took the receipt back in, picked up another PS2, stuck the receipt on it and walked out. The door person tore the receipt this time but obviously didn't pay attention to the time of sale. Dad also ran a huge business of installing chips in PlayStations so they could play copied games. He would rent games, burn a copy, then sell copies to other people. We had a whole library and catalog of copied games and dad had quite a few customers. Looking back I see how dodgy it was and why he told me not to tell too many people about it. My family did a lot of petty, trashy crime, shoplifting, theft, domestic assault, drugs, etc. I thought it was normal for adults to just kinda go to jail every few years for a day or two until I was 10. Now, my stepdad is out of my life. My mom is too old ill to do anything particularly bad, and my dad may have helped finance a district attorney's election, which has saved him mountains in legal fees for himself and the he frequents. Yes, it took me a long time to get over my confusion that not everyone at my school knew all of the police officers by name during the DARE program. Small town, and not because someone in my family was a cop, but because I thought they just showed up at everyone's houses all the time, just like me. Funny how we assume everyone lives similar lives when we are kids. I don't know, and probably will never know, what my parents did. However, we would leave the house at nighttime and go drive through certain parks. Occasionally my parents would panic and tell us to hide. We had to crawl onto the floorboard in the back of a tiny book. My dad came home with injuries sometimes and my mom always said he fell. And finally, in that particular town, they hated the cops. They claimed they were all corrupt. Maybe they were. IDK. You should listen to the podcast called The Clearing. It's about a woman who, in her 40s, realized her dad was a serial killer. Catching him helped solve some murders and brought some peace to the families involved. My dad was a mechanic. The ones that stick out was when he would charge for a new replacement part and then go to the local junkyard and get the part from there. If the customer asked upfront, he would be honest and offer the two options. Junkyard part equals cheap but likely reliable, or new equals expensive and only parts warranty. If they didn't ask, most of the time it was a junkyard part. Rarely got in trouble or called out since his prices were a fraction of regular shops. Oh, I guess the other main shady part was that he wasn't a legit certified mechanic and most business was cash under the table. His apprentice is now my mechanic and he learned from my dad's mistakes. He provides receipts, boxes, and shows me where he installed the new part, and it's always shiny and new, minus obvious grease handling installation marks. He learned that cleaning before installing is key. Thanks, Dad Mechanic. Drugs. I had no idea they were illegal until I was a lot older than I should have been to understand they're illegal. My father was a grower and distributes to a well-known MC he was a part of. We grew up running around pot fields. I slept on a couch most of my childhood because all the rooms had been converted in hydroponic setups. Our roof space was converted into storage where it was garbage bags of weed, around 100-150 SQM, all stacked on top of each other. Other stupid crap too. Apparently owning and registered firearms is illegal. You need a driver's license to drive a vehicle. It was normal for people in my family to be in and out of jail. It was normal for most of my family to have some sort of criminal record. We were always taught to not respect cops. For example, when my dad found weed in my 16-year-old sister's car, instead of reprimanding her for having it, he reprimanded her for how easy it would be for cops to find. We were always watching mob movies and my dad would just gush about how classy and cool they were. It's just little stuff like that mostly, nothing like outrageous. My family weren't criminals or in jail at all and fully respected cops, but my parents liked pot. Legal here now, woo. And my dad also reprimanded me for how easy it'd be for cops to find my stash rather than for smoking weed, lol. Pretty much what's already been said. Have confidence, commit to the con, and act like you belong. Scary how effective this is, lol. Admit nothing, deny everything, demand proof. I used to be told everything was okay as long as you don't get caught. They kind of said it like a throwaway phrase, but I really took it to heart. It gave me a real lack of respect for any authority at all and made it seem more like a game than real life consequences. I would do illegal crap just to get the rush of wondering and whether or not I'd be caught. Once I was caught, I would just shrug and act like their winning didn't bother me. Kinda like their punishment was just them gloating about me getting caught. This is actually really interesting. My husband works with kids who go through some rough times, and this explanation of a kid's point of view explained so much. Thanks for sharing. A family friend was in the import-export business for gemstones. I didn't realize it could be illegal to transport gems across borders. We would have gem parties where a dining table that can sit 12 would be completely covered in bowls of gems and jewelry to buy. Same as Tupperware parties, but for gems. Some stones my parents got appraised shocked their jeweler. Super rare colors of different stones that they had never seen before. That friend has gone legit. Owned some mines in Africa now. Hey, my grandpa did this. My dad and I got pulled aside at customs and had our bags thoroughly searched. My dad was confused about us being randomly selected until later in the day when he suddenly was like, oh crap, it's because Pops was a smuggler. I never knew we weren't allowed to drink at the local fair. Mom used to bring beer in a cooler when we went, until I was 21 and a cop stopped me when I was walking around with a beer. There is a public event that's meant to be alcohol free here. They check all your bags going in. My aunt premixes gin and tonic in those plastic Chinese takeout containers, adds a slice of lemon and calls it soup. The part that makes me laugh is when she sits there on the picnic blanket eating her soup with a spoon. So this question brings up a very specific memory. My dad never said explicitly that what he was doing was acceptable, but he certainly didn't tell me that this was wrong. I'm between the ages of 5-7, unsure about a specific timeline on this, and my mom is often working in the evenings while my dad is sporadically around. One night, while my mom is gone, Dad gathers me to go for an adventure. Usually this means driving around the city and looking at stuff. Well, Dad pulls up to a hospital and parks. He sits with me in the car and gives me a script, saying that we recently moved here. A lie. And that he had hurt his back while moving boxes. Mega lie. I play along because hey, it's my dad and sure, whatever he says goes. Any other specifics from that night are hazy. I think he managed to talk his way into some sort of painkiller prescription. This was in the early zeros, so opiates weren't as visible as now. My dad has been in successful treatment since then, but man, that's a big memory that stands out for how screwed up my younger life was. My dad's no serious criminal, but petty in every way, including the crime he commits. I was basically taught to play dumb, act like you belong, and you can do whatever you want. We snuck into VIP lounges, other people's buffets and parties at restaurants and events. He once lied to a ticketer at a movie theater and got mad when they couldn't find the tickets he ordered online. He had not ordered tickets, but there was a huge line and he didn't want to wait. We got in for free and cut a huge line. Also cut lines at Disney Worlds and other sorts of places. Quite a few things. Backstory. My bio dad was convicted of murder. Got away with another murder through claiming self-defense. No clue if it was truly self-defense. And apparently had a third murder that he never got caught for. He would steal constantly from people to things inside stores. One of my earliest memories is wanting this super cute pink hat. I believe I was around 8. He put it on my head and told me to walk to the car. I remember asking about paying and he said don't worry, just walk. So, little me walks to the outside doors with her heart pounding and then the alarm goes off. I freeze and run back to my dad that was still shopping. First lesson I can remember I learned, you just need to keep walking when those alarms go off. He died a few years back. My brothers and I are decent people. My brother is a great dad, despite who he had as a dad. No, none of us 5 kids have murdered anyone as far as I know. He was an extremely abusive father and husband. I was the only daughter and he physically shamed, abused and emotionally abused me from 14 years of age. I ended up in foster care at 14. Have 2 great parents who were my first foster family, a loving bio mom who does her best, and even more siblings from my former foster parents. I have my own struggles, but you'd never know the trauma we went through if you met any of us. It's not fair for me to ask you a question without sharing something of my own. My mother was pretty shady. She was a opioid and benzo addict who took me doctor shopping from place to place looking for prescriptions. She faked seizures and had a rolling list of medical complaints. I don't know if she believed all of her illnesses were real, but she sure acted like she did around us and medical staff. She taught me that it was okay to manipulate doctors, but somehow I grew up to be exactly the opposite in that I feel embarrassed and guilty seeking medical care even for a legitimate complaint. I grew up in a relatively hostile environment, so many people come up so much worse, so I am not really complaining, in which my mom had a bunch of boyfriends. Most were cool, some were garbage. Nice ladies came to talk to me at school sometimes, and after the first visit, my mom coached me pretty hard about what to say. She definitely taught me that beer was just soda that grown-ups drank that only tastes good when you're grown up. So he drinks a lot of soda came up a few times. Again, really not that bad, but come on, ma, the frick. I have fond memories of hanging out in the shed with my parents, me playing with my dolls and them harvesting their money trees, weed strewn all over the floor, hanging from the ceiling. The leaves made into a little bed for my Barbie to sleep in. My dad did a lot of petty crime as I was growing up because we were lower middle class, hard on money, and he was cheap. The biggest thing that comes to mind was us living near a Christmas tree farm out in the country. There's a little trail that leads through the reforestation in front of my house to the tree farm. So for a few years we stole our Christmas tree from there. We would go one day during the day for a walk and tag one of the trees that we wanted, and then that night we'd come with flashlights, cut it down and drag it through the trail to our house. Dad didn't want to spend $30 on a tree from Home Depot. He also broke into my mom's dad's house when I was young to look for money he apparently kept in a tin can hidden. Never found it, but when I was young my parents told my brother and I that he was looking for my nanny's wedding band. He was abusive. She left in the middle of the night with the kids. He always said he threw away her ring, but she never believed him. Now I'll look back and go WTF. I never thought it was normal growing up, but I also didn't experience these things and go holy crap, my dad's breaking the law. Mom. Panhandle. I thought all kids' parents did this. Borrowing money from your kids for your addictions. My mom would reward me for cleaning, then when she get low would ask me to borrow money for mommy's medication. Beer, crack, weed. My original comment was not very informative. My dad did this when I was 13, but I actually checked multiple times and he was actually using it for the right reasons. Home repairs, etc. I had a rule that if you want to borrow money from me it must be paid back at an increment of x1.5 by the end of the year. It wasn't any small bucks either. My dad borrowed $50 $350 at a time. No complaints. I got paid. There were a lot of weird things I didn't think much of as a kid but realized were fricked up as an adult. Like how our family moved 13 times in 15 years. I just assumed people got new houses all the time, and how sometimes I would go to the freezer for some ice cream and find stacks of cash in the containers. Just weird crap like that. My brother, who was more than a decade older than me, was a drug dealer, a prominent one as well. He pretty much could get you anything. I have fond memories of driving around at night with him making stops to see his friends and then him getting money. Sometimes clients would come to the house to pick up their stuff. I can remember getting bags of pills together. At the time pills, especially Oxy, were all the rage. He used to call himself a pharmacist. When we would go out you'd notice certain people would follow us. My brother would point them out, that's a detective, that's the etc. My brother died almost 10 years ago. I'm a professor who teaches criminology. Today we're actually talking about drug trafficking, which naturally is my favorite crime and the one I've studied the most. My sister. She's 18 years older than me, so my mom would occasionally leave me with her. Sometimes for the day, a couple times for 5 days. 1. Her boyfriend, pimp, coming over, and then strange guys coming and going. I was like, what are they doing in there? 2. Driving to her drug dealer's RV in a trailer park. She left me and my niece outside while she fricked him for dope. Again, what are they doing in there? 3. Waking up to all kinds of weird people in the dining room doing drugs out in the open at 8 AM. 4. Driving severely impaired with 2 kids in the car. 5. She would sleep all day. My niece and I would wake up. She was 5, I was 12. And there would be almost no food in the house, so I had to scrounge. I'm talking potted meat or moldy bread, baked beans for breakfast. It was some of the most fricked up times. I freaking hate that woman to this day. Don't even bother giving me the Ocean addict. Poor her. Be kinder to her. Number. She also let both of her ex-husbands touch my niece. She was so negligent, I'm shocked that we didn't have worse crap happen. My sister is not my biological mother. You all need to take your conspiracy theories somewhere else. There is solid evidence to prove that she is not my mother. Also, we thought this crap was normal. Like weird people in the house, eating moldy food, going to sketchy places. I'm gonna further explain why my sister is 18 years older than me. My mom had her at 18. And then I was a surprise at 36. I look like my mother and my father, and not like my sister or my nibblings. My sister resented my existence from my conception. She was an only child and then I came and fricked it up. My sister didn't become a full-blown drug addict until after my nephew was born 3 years later. There's pictures of my sister and mother together with my 36-year-old mother pregnant and my sister not pregnant in the early 90s. There is a specific photo of my whole family together, including my father, who was just my mom's boyfriend at the time. They broke up and she told him to kick sand, and she is pregnant in the photo. Okay, I know baked beans for breakfast is a thing in the UK and us, but in Texas it's weird af. That's some poverty crap over here. Baked beans are for serving with BBQ and dinner. I hope your niece is okay, or on her way to being okay. Your sister is seriously fricked up. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.